Water Protection Project is a CMO project, meaning it's with Chippewa, Munsee, and Oneida. And it's a project that works to best protect our source water. So our source water comes from an aquifer that's below the Thames River. So these three communities have come together with the Canadian Environmental Law Association and with funding from the Law Foundation of Ontario to come together and establish policies and bylaws that look to best protect our source water.
When we think of today as civics engineering, we were doing that a millennia ago. We had to have certain things in place. We had to have certain elements, like see with the swampy area, the marsh area, the wooded area around here. They were all part of a very complex ecosystem that sustained and maintained us. Areas of this river, this would have been known as Dishkan-Zibi, loosely translated, it works to Antler River, which is a loose reference to the forks of the Thames. Without having an overhead aerial view, I would just like to know, how did we know that? But upon further studying, the Chippewas of the Thames used the Thames as a bit of a shipping lane between nations here. Before there was the 401, before there was the number 2 highway, there was only the Thames River.
The river is not only a thing, it's not only a place, it's not anything but a living being. It's our grandmother, as we refer to in Anishinaabe culture. This is where we come to give our thanks, to pray, to reflect on life, because this is where our life comes from. Within our culture, it's said that women are the carriers of the water. And so I feel like that's strengthened a little bit of my connection to the water as well. And it's a very significant teaching, because if we start to learn these things and have appreciation for them, that appreciation extends beyond that to our entire land and why we're here.
In the springtime, we always used to go fishing because that's when the perch run, and then sometimes we'd eat it and sometimes we wouldn't eat the fish.
So I became extremely passionate about my reserve and especially the river as a young kid, coming down to this beautiful place to fish. A lot of it was just to we would bring our dogs down here and hang out with the family, and just little things like seeing different kinds of plants or being able to see the fish down here at the river, and a lot of mussels. We have a lot of endangered mussels down here.
When I was a little kid and everyone said, oh, don't go swimming in the Thames River because it's polluted, because it's contaminated.
I did have a couple of friends who did, and usually after, when they dry off, their skin seems really ashy, and it's like really, I don't know what it is from the water, but it just really makes their skin dry.
A lot of turtles. And there was another spot where you didn't need a fishing pole to fish. All you needed was a pair of boots so you wouldn't get your feet wet, and just walk into the little rapids and swoosh the water with your hands and put the fish onto the bank and pick them up and walk home.
I was 13, 14 years old, and I was exploring down by the river. There's something we do as children around here. We just explore, just to find out what's down there. That's how we found the turtle. That's how we find a lot of what's going on, and getting a basic read on the environment.
I've canoed it a few times, not the length of it, but here and there in spots. And at certain times of the year, it's a beautiful river. It's a nice color to the water, and the banks are just great. It's a beautiful river to canoe on and to use. I've noticed last year a lot more use of the river because of the fishing. There was a lot more people down there last year with fishing poles and just out for the day and socialize. It's like more of a community aspect to it than I've seen. And I guess it was like that at times in the past as well, a real community event. And that's only a positive thing, I think.
That's where we directly draw our water from. And so that's kind of telling of, well, people don't even drink the water anymore. If you ask anybody, they don't drink the tap water. I only know 2 people, and they're the water testing people who drink the water.
I think they did a comparison of like what our water is to clean water. I think that was pretty eye-opening to see that comparison, like how high our sodium was compared to just bottled water. Having that trust in your own tap water to be able to drink it, I think that's something that a lot of people don't have. And it'd be really awesome to have it.
Some of the threats in our community, one of the biggest ones would be the city of London, I would say. We know that they dump their sewage water down that river.
There's been a lot of overflow that comes right down our way.
You know, having 70 million gallons of effluent dumped on your community, basically your front doorstep every day, is a problem.
One of the other concerns that we learned about when I first got into this position was a lot of the dumping along the river.
Contractors sometimes can't afford these dumping charges, and unfortunately, their answer to that, illegal dumping.
When we started identifying these areas along the Thames River that had little dump sites, there was 3 of them, and within 2 of them we found asbestos in there, and there was chemicals that were leaking into the river directly from those garbage piles. So we want to get those cleaned up, and we put that as a priority of our community, and we got it done, and it costs a lot of money to do that kind of stuff.
We've seen a steady rise of land erosion, my estimates by 20% within the last 20 years. And a lot of people don't think of land erosion as being a problem, but if you only have a limited amount of said land, it becomes a problem.
If it rains, all that rainwater is trying to get to the Thames River.
We have a lot of open land, and currently the majority of that land is being used for agricultural purposes. And the issue with that is it's putting a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen into our water.
I know our water treatment center isn't up to date, so I don't think it purifies everything.
And everybody thinks it's an endless supply of this potable water. Well, through industrial waste, that potable water is getting down and down and down.
Who'd have ever thought that they would come up with a system where they would deny you water in order for another settlement to live or maintain? There was need for protectors of the water.
What we talk about in our Thanksgiving address, we start with the plants, and we talk about the medicines, and then we talk about the animals and the birds and the water, and it continues to grow, right, to the suns, to the moons, to the stars, to the thunders, and then to the Great Spirit. I interpret this as what we need to protect, what is under our domain of what we need to ensure is healthy forever. When you have that interpretation, that doesn't just go into our community. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond just this little border, right? It's this entire region that we have to protect and have to be stewards of the land for.
There has been a huge species at risk inventory that was done on Chippewa as well, which is extremely important to knowing what kind of habitat these species are looking for, and if they're only being found in one certain area, you know that that area needs to be protected.
We were hoping to create a series of bylaws, or in any which way, whether that be a land code, bylaws, or a BCR through council that would establish land protection for our communities.
I think having bylaws and having standards that we have to live by in our own community will help that as well. I think we have to look at our own backyard before we look at anybody else's, what they're doing.
They're addressing a lot of those issues pertaining to agriculture, so that's going to be a huge step going forward.
I'm encouraged to see that, even just that little bit of corporate help there, and where the corporations are now coming to us and saying, you guys were eco-engineering long before we ever got here, how'd you guys ever do it? That's amazing to hear, because it's come full circle, a notion to listen to us about it.
Water does have its value. You don't know how valuable it is till you don't have it.
It's absolutely necessary for a community like ours to ensure that we have that clean water for our community.
We are water, our plants are water, and it's the ultimate basis of survival.
People are starting to take more consideration into what kind of environment that we actually have or that we're living in. I think that we can only do better from where we're at now.
You can definitely see the improvement in the Thames River now over the last, I would say, 5 years. Just based on, this whole environmental ideology that's been put out there now, protection and conservation and stuff, you can really see the effects. Last year they found 3 northern pike in the Thames River. One they found was 100 centimeters long, and those are northern fish that you wouldn't see in down here ever.
We're getting steelhead salmon. We're getting different species that are coming in from the lake that we haven't normally seen or we haven't seen in quite some time. So as an indicator of maybe things being better.
Canoeing and other leisure activities, just getting out in nature. Fishing, I hope, continues to be as good as it was last year. And just appreciating it.
And I think that seeing all 3 communities come together and make a project like this is really big. I think it's awesome.
Nature forward thinking, and I think that's what a lot of our community needs to get back to, is this idea of living on the land, in the land.
For the environment will bring us together as people, non-native, native alike.
We can come together when it comes to issues such as the environment, because what goes on in Oneida is going to affect the Thames River. What happens in Chippewa is going to affect the Thames River. What happens in Munsee is going to affect the river, and we're all going to feel it equally.
And I'm really hoping that a lot of people who draw from the Thames River or live along it can really get that message home of continual cleaning, because it's not about just doing it now, it's about doing it forever. It's about continuously making sure that that river is clean, and we can get there one day, and we will get there one day.
We have to be better. We have to be better for that next generation.